What we're doing in the next few minutes is having the campaign get their time on the show here. And what we have is Nicole Durst, who's the co-general consultant of the campaign and the Opportunity for All Coalition, and Walter Wilson, who's a member of the ballot measure committee on the Opportunity for All Coalition, Proposition 16, to give us an update on the campaign and how we can participate, how it's going. People are really curious about Proposition 16. So I'm going to turn it over to you folks, and to encourage you, you are free to encourage the folks who are watching and listening today to take part in the campaign, not just be spectators. We want you to vote for Prop 16. We want you to do a little bit more. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. It's an honor to be here with you today. And thank you for the endorsement, Jim. We appreciate it. And that's also why we're here today, because we don't just want people to vote for it. We're here to ask for financial support so that we can win this proposition. So I want to say something quick though before we get started. The mission paper you're talking about is very informative. In fact, most of those small community newspapers are informative. I remember when I was delivering the news call bulletin, most of you people who are not from San Francisco wouldn't even know what that paper is, but I used to deliver it to Willie Brown's house when I was living up in the Upper Haight. He was a guy, I was his paper boy. And so I saw him the other day. I said, Willie, so how old are you? He's like, because he's 20 years older than me, and I'm 66, and I was his paper boy, and he's still running around doing things. So that's kind of interesting. Anyway, so yeah, that's just a little story. But thank you. We appreciate the opportunity for being here today, and to tell you about Prop 16 and what it is that it means, and the importance of it to our community. You know, I own a business in Silicon Valley called the Minority Business Consortium, and we formed that business expressively for the purpose of addressing the disparities in contracting, specifically in contracting for minorities, women, and others in the state of California. Because of Prop 209, companies, government agencies, counties would call us in and say, how can we create more diversity in our contracting environment? And working with the general counsels, we tried many, many different areas and many different things, but we always ran up against Prop 209. So when the opportunity came, and I was talking to Eva Patterson, you know, about, hey, this is the time, this is the place, we have a supermajority. It was just a very natural thing to do for us to say, let's proceed and move forward with undoing this travesty that's so negatively impacted people of color and women in the state. You know, excuse me, Prop 209, under Prop 209, businesses owned by women and people of color lose at a minimum $1.1 billion a year, and that's for over 22 years in government state contracts. The number of women and Latinos employed by the state of California decreased significantly, particularly relative to the population. And to this day, women still earn 80 cents for every dollar a man earns on average, and women of color and single moms make less than 60 cents on the dollar for the same work as their white male counterparts. And to me, that's unconscionable in the state of California that we are in today in 2020, that women are being treated like really second-class citizens. And we hope that when Prop 16 passes, we can use this as a tool to begin to address that disparity. You know, Black and Latino students admitted to the University of California decreased between 12 and 60%, depending on the university's location. When Prop 209 was first implemented, this happened immediately. And even today, Asian, American, and Pacific Islander admission rates at the University of California declined as well. So, you know, this ban on affirmative action is really a ban on equal opportunity. And what we want to do is we wanted to try to undo that and try to bring back more equity, try to bring back equity and equality into the state of California. You know, we want to help to end wage discrimination against women and strengthen resources in K-12 schools. We want to ensure that women, especially women of color, have equal access. And standing up for working women of people of color, many of whom are on the front lines of COVID-19, are the first targeted for layoffs. Ensuring all California students have equal access to higher education, undergraduate and beyond, so that they can build the careers of their dreams and serve our communities for years to come. So those are just some points that I wanted to share with you. And I'm going to turn it over now to Nicole Durst, our campaign consultant. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Walter. And thanks, Jim and Bay Area Council. It's great to see you again. And we just really appreciate your support of Prop 16, and not only your support, but your enthusiastic support in putting this together today, and all the Bay Area sports teams coming on board early has been phenomenal. So Justin, thank you. I'm going to just go through a couple of slides about the campaign. I know you guys have done a lot. I've heard from Dr. Weber and a lot of good substance on where we stand in terms of the issue, right? And what matters with the issues. So I want to talk a little bit about the campaign. If you could go through the next slide, Justin. Thank you so much. One thing I'm not sure if Dr. Weber shared, but California is only one of 9 states that has a ban on affirmative action. So that's very, very rare. 41 states in the country allow for this. Go ahead. We've talked about what the initiative does. So when I get into the next one, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about where we stand. So as you probably heard, in terms of this campaign, our #1 opponent is really confusion. It's the ballot language. So this is a ballot initiative that has absolute unity support from the business community, from labor unions, from every statewide Democratic elected official in California, from the largest newspapers in California, the Democratic Party, the ACLU, our next vice president, Kamala Harris. We've got extraordinary support. The challenge that we face is the ballot question is pretty confusing, to be honest. It sort of asks people, do you want to repeal a ban on discrimination? And to folks that don't understand what that meant and what that means for women and people of color across California, it can be confusing. So our job is to really tell them what Prop 16 is about, not only what it'll do, but also who's for it versus who's against it. Once we do that, we're able to move. So this polling shows what happens when we get our message out there to California voters. We get to move all voters into 53% support, only 32% against. And with that, we know that we gain the support of almost 75% of Black voters, 64% Latino voters, and 59% AAPI voters. All voters, with the exception of most Republicans, are available to us. We absolutely can win this election. We just need to have the resources to be able to communicate about what Prop 16 is. Californians want to do something about systemic racism. They want to do something about gender discrimination, and they just need to understand that Prop 16 is a step in the right direction. Go to the next slide, please. I mentioned the endorsements just across the board, really phenomenal. All our Bay Area sports teams, as well as all of the elected officials and Democratic elected officials across the state. Can you go to the next slide? So what do we need to do in order to win? We've done amazing research. We ad tested several ads. We put together 4 separate ads and kind of looked at how influential they were going to be and whether or not they were going to be able to move voters, because we know that in order to win, we can't just say vote yes on Prop 16. We have to show what that really means. So what we found was David Binder Research has been doing a lot of our polling along with Lake Research. David Binder Research did our ad testing. And what we found from our ad testing is that, for those of you that have done campaigns before, if you can move voters 5 points with an ad, that's good. If you can move them 10 points with an ad, that's great. Our ads moved voters between 13 and 19 points. 19 points, our best ad. When voters saw it, they went from, we tested non-Republicans because that's our swing voters. And we found that maybe they start out at about 45% support and end at like 65% support just by seeing our ad. And among voters of color, much higher. Among women voters, much higher. So we know that with the resources, we can get it out there. We've done really amazing research so that we have our overall message around leveling the playing field, opportunity for all, really looking at the gender pay gap, because we know that women make 80 cents on the dollar and women of color make much less. Latinas only 42 cents. So what we found was that overarching message is really powerful, but then also some specific tailored messages, to Latino voters around the history of racism and Pete Wilson, to Black voters around, the historical moment that we're in, to API voters around what this means for business opportunities and contracting. We have specific messages that we know resonate, as well as our overall message. We've got an extensive paid communications program, digital advertising, in language, as well as our TV buy. You move to the next slide. Great. So what can you do? And then I'm going to show our ad at the end of this, because I appreciate that Jim enjoyed it. I'm really, really proud of it and excited about it. in the last 32 days, what we've got to do is we've got to get all the voters of California aware of this. There's a lot going on, a lot of other distractions nationally for folks. And, you know, we know some of the other ballot measures have more money than us and, you know, they're spending all of it on air, but we've got to break through. So we know that yes vote is a little bit of a heavier lift, and it's going to take all of us coming together and being able to spread the word. We also know that for Californians, for the first time, many of them are going to have a vote by mail ballot. And we need to make sure that we communicate early. You know, 50% of Californians are saying they're planning on voting in the first week. So even if half of them do that, we've got to make sure that our message is out there over the next 10 days, even more so than over the next 32 days. What do we have going for us? This November electorate, we have the highest rate of voter registration in the state of California's history right now. It's unbelievable. We also know that folks are excited to vote. It's going to be the most diverse electorate in California history, and that with Black Lives Matter, folks really want to do something about racial justice, and this is at the top of their mind. They also want to do something to fight against Trump. California voters, the majority of them do, and we know what side he's on here. The opposition does not have traction. They have raised about $800,000. We've raised 15 million, so almost 20 times we've raised what they have. They've maintained to be a pretty small group of folks, but they are loud and they are organized and they are out there, and we need to make sure that we can meet them in resources, people resources, financial resources, etc. So we just ask all of you to spread the word through your personal networks. You could go to the next slide, please. And here's some links of what you can do. So you can endorse Prop 16 if your company or your organization has not done that yet. We know the Bay Area Council has, which is amazing. You can donate money, which we really, really need and appreciate. The more money that we get, right now we're in media markets. We're up in Los Angeles and the Bay Area. And then starting on Tuesday, we're up in San Diego. We would love to add the Central Valley, Sacramento media markets beyond. And we'd love to add more points because we know that it takes so much to penetrate, and we have a lot more to do there. And then sign up to volunteer. We've been hosting text banks. We've had companies host text banks where they've gotten their employees to come and to text voters and spread the word. We'd love for you to do that. Phone banks as well. And then just following and engaging us on Twitter. So with that, before I close, I have Justin show our fabulous new ad. It's called We Rise Together. And we're really excited about it. We've done, as I mentioned, several ads. All of them performed really well. So we will be showing more of them on digital, but this is the one that's on TV. Thanks, Justin.
Proposition 16 takes on discrimination. Some women make as little as 42% of what a man makes. Voting yes on Prop 16 helps us fix that. It's supported by leaders like Kamala Harris and opposed by those who have always opposed equality. We either fall from grace or we rise together. Proposition 16 provides equal opportunities, leveling the playing field for all of us. Vote yes on Prop 16.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much. I don't know if there's any additional time for questions. Also, just really want to thank John Garcia, who I know is on here. He's one of our top donors with Kaiser, and just really appreciate that. And for all of you that have donated, thank you for your support. It means the world to us, and we can do this with all of your help.
Thank you. That was great. I'm sorry, Jim, I just want to say one thing. One thing that most people may not know is this campaign is really a 2-month campaign. We spent all year going through the legislature with ACA 5 to get it all the way through. And then once we finally got for the proposition number of 16, we have roughly 2.5 months to get to where we are now, where other propositions like 15 and others have had years. And so this is why we're here today, to really request and ask for your financial assistance so that we can continue to push through. Because with the additional funds that we need to raise between like now, which is immediately, we could actually win this election, but we need your help to do it. All of you guys, if you can, whatever you can do, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Walter, and thank you, Nicole. And yeah, you know, Walter, I was going to say just what you said, is that, you know, this is unusual, that, you know, a huge amount of effort went in, as Assemblymember Weber detailed so intimately, to get this thing through, and yet then it left very, very little time to build a campaign and raise the funds and do those things, which normally happen, you know, over much more time. So, you know, and then the initial polling comes out, and it's negative. And so a lot of times people say, well, I hear it's going to lose because of the initial polling. So I think, Nicole, what you showed is what we need to talk about, is if you can get the word out on this, people respond. And those are big numbers, you know, being familiar with political campaigns, to be able to move folks in the teens with messaging, or even almost 20%, is really phenomenal. And so it's definitely a winnable effort, and it's an important effort. And, you know, this is just something as a leader in the business community, you know, I think it's critical for us to be behind it, and not just in words, but, you know, with support. And, you know, we're going to keep trying to help any way we can. So thank you for coming on and providing this briefing. And we're going to move to the next panel.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.